Hi, Angeline. How are you? Good to see
Yeah,
you.
yeah, good to see you. Okay, nice to get you in. Let's start. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today to attend the TCFA annual conference. It's my distinct honor to be introducing a man that I have had the pleasure of working with the past couple of months. You may know him as the former United States presidential candidate or New York City mayoral candidate, but his impact extended beyond the political sphere and reached in touch of the lives of all Americans. Early this year, I have had an opportunity to invite him to have a conversation with Generation Z to share his life journey and social leadership development. His power speech inspired thousands of young people and many people like me who would like to see a rising star of American Chinese. Working to empower young entrepreneurs, he created Venture for America, a national nonprofit that creates economic opportunities in cities all over the country. Since the organization's inception, it has become a multi-million-dollar charity and has allowed its founder to be named the Presidential Ambassador of Entrepreneurship and Champion of Change by the White House under the Obama administration. As an advocate for the American people, he launched a nonprofit, Humanity Forward, which successfully lobbied Congress to bring billions of dollars in cash relief and stimulus checks to millions in need. He has also authored 3 books, the most recent entitled Forward, in which he analyzed the flaws of American democracy and discussed how to prevent its decline. His dedication to the American people is evident through his commitment to enacting social change. In addition to his success as a politician, entrepreneur, and a philanthropist, he's also a role model for all American Chinese. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Andrew Yang.
Thank you, Angeline. Thank you, TCFA. It's fantastic to be here to address you all. What a kind introduction. Made me feel very accomplished. Thank you, Angeline. But I certainly do share many people's concerns about what's going on, not just in America and its economy, but also in terms of the U.S. China relationship. And the remarks I'm going to give today are going to try to make clearer my sense of the dynamics that threaten to hold us back, really, or worse. And so it's been an incredible journey for me this last number of years. I was a fairly anonymous Chinese American entrepreneur until my presidential run, which then brought me to a national stage. And I will say that one of the high points of my experiences has been feeling like I raised the ceiling for Chinese Americans and Asian Americans in terms of political engagement. Being on the national presidential debate stage, not once, but 7 times, I felt would be a huge difference maker for young Asian Americans to think about how we fit in American life. And I grew up in America. Most of you can probably tell that. I was born in upstate New York. And when I was growing up, there weren't many Asian Americans on TV. If there were any Asian Americans on TV, they were in a kung fu movie, maybe as a waiter, and every once in a while there would be a newscaster. I think those were the only roles that I saw growing up. And I had a vision for having an Asian American presidential candidate on the debate stage, and that millions of Asian Americans would see that and say, wow, we can do that? We can run for president? And we can. I think that we have accepted a particular implicit place in American society that we should not, truly, that there is no reason why we cannot lead and contribute at the highest levels of this country, particularly because we contribute so much and we have so much to offer.
Exactly, yeah.
So
I think you are very, very brave to change your entrepreneur to decide to, to presidential campaign. So anyway, bravo for that.
Oh, thank you, Angeline. Are you and I going to have a moderated conversation? Because if so, I've been doing a lot of talking. Or do you want me to deliver remarks? And I am very open to either,
Yeah,
or both.
well, go ahead to prepare your speech. Yeah, I'm just
All right, good stuff. So I've learned a lot over the last several years, and I want to try and impart some of what I've learned to you all, so you have a sense of what's to come and what we can do about it. So I'm going to rewind a number of decades even, when China first started to open up economically, and in the West, people regarded China as backward economically, which it was poorer at the time, but also underdeveloped politically. And there was a thesis in America where if the Chinese economy opened up, then Chinese citizens would then want a higher degree of political say, and it would lead to progressive liberalism and democratization in China. Now, we all know what happened in real life, that the Chinese economy has grown tremendously since then. But if anything, the Chinese model of government has been quite successful in managing that growth, and Chinese citizens are, by and large, seeing their standard of living rise, and that's the most important thing to them. While Western democracy actually has been called more and more into question because of various struggles. And the struggles in the US tend to be centered around one individual, Donald Trump. And Trump obviously won the election in 2016 and may run again. And so for me, when Trump became president in 2016, I took that as a massive red flag. I thought that it signaled that America was losing faith, that its standard of living was going down. And I had spent 6 years in the Midwest and the South in the United States watching, frankly, the standard of living decline, because that's where Venture for America operated. So these are the things that drove me to run for president in 2018, 2019, 2020. And my decision to run at the time did not seem entirely wise, shall we say. My parents now are very proud of me and the rest of it, but when I said, hey, I'm running for president, they were concerned, and they're not unusual in the sense that I think Chinese Americans, Asian Americans do not tell their kids, go into American politics. Like that's not the message that we get. One outgrowth of this, however, is that Asian Americans are the most underrepresented community in the United States in terms of electoral politics relative to our numbers. We're, let's call it 6.5% of the population. We are far less than 6.5% of elected representatives. So my decision to run was based upon my desire to help Americans understand what was happening to us economically and technologically, which was driving, in my view, a lot of these political currents, including Donald Trump's election in 2016. And you all probably know that I proposed universal basic income to help America get through this time. This is about when you probably heard of me. And while I was running for president, I learned a lot about Western media. And certainly the Western media had a certain response to me when I was running for president. And one of my reasons for running was that I didn't think Western media was doing a good job conveying to the American people what was happening to it economically or technologically. And it turns out that there are distortions occurring that make it so that you have this two-sided duopoly in America, the Democrats and the Republicans, and neither of them really is presenting the truth of what's happening throughout the country. And so my campaign reached a certain level. We had an impact that I'm very, very proud of. I wrote this book, Forward, that tries to document how the media and social media dynamics are making it difficult for American democracy to work. And one of the outgrowths of that experience was my sense of the place of Chinese Americans and Asian Americans, both in political life, but also even in American society, where with COVID, unfortunately, we've seen xenophobia and hostility surge against Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. It's been deeply painful for many of us. And if you look at the dominant political narratives in both the Democratic and the Republican Party, neither of them really centers on Asian Americans. I'd actually say Asian Americans kind of struggle to be included, where you have the Democratic narrative is around, look, there are people that are being kept down or oppressed, and we should try and help them. Asian Americans are not in that narrative. And then on the Republican side, you have this nativist return to American greatness of yesteryear, and we're not in that narrative either. And so Chinese Americans and Asian Americans find themselves somewhat politically voiceless and homeless, and that plays out in different ways. So now it turns out that the problems that are being faced by Chinese Americans and Asian Americans and the democracy as a whole are very, very much the same, in that there is no unifying, rational, centrist voice in American politics, which is one reason why the democracy is doing so poorly. And I'm going to suggest that for Chinese Americans, we kind of fall naturally in this middle lane where we're not very ideological, we're practical, we just want things to work better. And as American democracy struggles, things will work, frankly, like less and less. Americans will get angrier and angrier. And then one of the results is that both parties will find themselves wanting to cast China as the rival and competitor, and even worse. Because if your people are getting angry, you're not able to deliver results, what is the most natural thing to do? Blame an outside agent or a factor and say, you know why you're not happy, you know why things aren't going well? It's because of China. And you've seen that one of the only things that the parties seem to agree on is that beating up China and blaming China is a win politically. They don't agree on much else, but this is something that they do agree on. And so there are these nasty dynamics happening in tandem where American democracy is struggling. They're going to be looking for someone to cast responsibility for that on. You have this budding economic rivalry between the US and China. And unfortunately, the political incentives of the United States will lead toward higher tensions, not lower tensions. And I think we're seeing that in various ways. So I'd imagine that for many of you, this is personal because many of you live and work in the United States and you've experienced the surge in xenophobia in some ways. Also for you all, I'd imagine that the relationship between US and China getting worse is a very bad thing, not just in terms of your ability to conduct business in various ways, but also personally, because you may have family members, in both places. And so the goal has to be to try and knit together American democracy as quickly as possible, but also hopefully provide a political voice for managing the U.S. China relationship in what I would term a more responsible, forward-thinking way. Because the reality is you're never going to be able to resolve the biggest issues of our time, which I would include climate change, managing AI, and some of the geopolitical issues, if the US and China are literally in separate worlds competing with each other. Like that's not a recipe for any kind of global success. And that's not a popular thing to say now in American politics, because right now, again, there's a bit of a competition between the parties as to who can be tougher on China. And that's leading to some of the things that I'm going to guess that the people here today would not want to see develop in the days to come. And we can see that dynamics getting worse, not better. So if you want to help things, I think that we have to try and make American democracy work better. And American democracy right now is working terribly, in part because this duopoly that they've established really doesn't make any sense. It doesn't function well. It's not what the Constitution says. It's not what the founders had in mind. And if you used common sense just for a moment, looking around the world, the UK has 5 parties, Germany has 7 parties, Sweden has 8 parties. The US is highly unusual throughout the world for just having 2 parties. It's actually very poor design if you think about it, because if you have 2 parties going like this, and then the polarization and tensions go up and up, you wind up with worse and worse governance, more and more anger. And again, that is exactly what we're seeing in the United States right now. So our role, I believe, as Chinese Americans and Asian Americans has to be to try and bring it together, provide a new centrist voice, and lower the temperature of the United States so that it can actually be more rational, more clear-headed, and perhaps a better partner around the world, including to our friends in Asia. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense of my experience over the last number of years. There's a lot of work to do. I mean, things are not going well. And my goal is to be one of the figures that helps provide a clear path to the future and get people on board so that we actually can be excited about our future, our kids' future, and the world's future.
Great. Thank you very much, Andrew. You know, I have been following your conference many places, and yesterday also attend your book speech. And I encourage everyone, audience can buy Andrew's book. And Andrew, your next Saturday, I hear that you will be in New York City again. Will you talking a little bit that? Oh, so many people can maybe join you.
Oh, sure thing. There are people probably all over, New York City on this call. It's true. So I'm doing an event at the City Winery. In New York City. It's going to be delightful. Everyone who comes gets a signed book. There should be several hundred people. It's going to be engaging, exciting. I've done a number of these events around the country and they've been awesome. So if you go to andrewyang.com, you can find the information for this event next Saturday in New York City.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful time today. Let's bring the world back together. It needs us.
Yeah, and a good luck for selling more book, and a good luck for the Forward Party. And I will always.
Yes. Thank you. And if you want to find out more information about the Forward Party, which is this new centrist unifying political movement, you can go to forwardparty.com. Would love for you to support us. This is what the United States needs, and thus what the world needs. But yeah, let's show what we can do at a leadership level. It's not enough for us to say that we're at this level. We have to keep trying to demonstrate that we can be at this level.
Oh, actually, I have one question because we still have 2 minutes. Just
sure.
The question is actually from our senior director. He asked you, what's the outlook for 2022, 2024 election?
Sure thing. So on Tuesday of this week, there were a number of elections that were very bad for Democrats, very good for Republicans. And I expect that dynamic to continue through 2022. I think the Republicans will take back the House of Representatives. If the political climate was like it is right now, I think Republicans would take back the Senate. So you're going to have, in my view, Republican control of at least one House of Congress, which will make it very, very difficult for Democrats to get much done. I believe Trump will be the Republican nominee. And I think the Democrats will end up nominating Joe Biden again. And so you'll have a very, very senior type pair of candidates, shall we say, going into 2024. But I think it's going to be a very, very difficult time for Democrats for the foreseeable. Right now, Joe's approval rating is around 43%. It's lower with independents. The results on Tuesday were a clear red flag for Democrats in that they lost a state, Virginia, that they won by 10 points just last year. A 10-point decline in 1 year is very, very dramatic. So I think the polarization that I'm concerned about is just going to grow and get worse. I think Republicans will take back the House in 2022. And right now, you would have to imagine it's Trump, Biden, 2 in a very, very tough race that, it's going to be a difficult case for Democrats to make because I don't think they'll have much in the way of policy that they can pass through 23 and 24.
Thank you so much. What a great answer and a question. Okay, have a great day and good luck again. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move this world forward. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Angeline.
Bye.